So, when I was a senior in high school, just months away from graduation, my dad kicked me out. So this was after I moved away from my mom and I moved in with my dad. I was in this phase of teen angst and wanting to start over. My mom and I weren't getting along, so I did the whole shebang and just changed high schools, as I'm sure some of us have wished we could do at one point or another. So, at the time, my dad had just gotten remarried. He had this new wife and 4 new stepchildren, and that's a whole other talk I could give, but I'm not going to get into that today. So shortly after I moved in, it was like all hell broke loose, or as the story is told. And our house was a war zone. No one was getting along, everyone was arguing, and my dad, to remedy this, decided to kick me out. So when he did this, my first thought was, oh crap, where am I going to live? So I packed my things, I moved back to my old town, and I moved in with my mom in a 1-bedroom apartment and graduated from high school. And throughout this whole process, I was a wreck. I didn't know where I was going to go to college, where I was going to get the money, or what college even looks like for me at this point. And when I was only expecting things to get worse, I got my acceptance to Virginia Tech, along with almost full financial aid, and my acceptance to the Emma Bowen Foundation. And as I'm sure many of you feel, this changed my life. And it's at this point in time that the ideology of go with the flow first finds its way onto my radar. So go with the flow has been a motto of mine for the past 2 years, and I'm going to tell you why. Fast forward a year after my dad has kicked me out, I find myself attending Virginia Tech, and after 2 years of being heavily involved in an on-campus ministry that allowed me the home away from home that I was looking for, the strong community that I thought I needed, I realized that something didn't seem right. And so I started asking questions because I just felt like my church was a little too judgmental. So I asked, do you sometimes feel like our church is judgmental? Did you get anything out of that service on Sunday? Because I didn't. And what I think really set some people over the edge, do you want to go to a party with me tonight? So it's at this point in time that I'm clearly discovering my more rebellious side. So my church sensed something in me and shifted. And you know what they did? They asked me to step down as a youth group leader. And shortly after, I found myself losing a lot of friends until I made the decision to leave my church altogether. So I went home to my apartment and I cried. And I ate family-sized bags of Doritos for about a month, but then I got an email. And you know the general emails that the College of Liberal Arts sends out that advertise a heavily expensive study abroad program that nobody can really afford. But I felt like this email was just for me. It was 4 simple words that said, study abroad, Dominican Republic. And you know, my first thought was, I'm Dominican, I don't speak fluent Spanish, and I don't have any family there, but this trip is for me. And so I applied to the trip on a whim, not knowing anything about it, and I got accepted. And in January of 2017, I find myself sitting on a plane next to 13 strangers that I've only spoken a few words to, but I'm ready to embark on this adventure that I realistically know nothing about. People would ask me what I would be doing in the Dominican Republic, and I would say things to them like, oh, you know, helping people. When the reality was that when a half-price trip to the Dominican Republic presented itself, I wasn't asking too many questions. But the trip was amazing. I worked with a nonprofit on sustainable community gardens. I taught IT classes in elementary schools, and I constructed bathrooms alongside community members with another amazing nonprofit. And because of this experience, I discovered that I love doing international service. And this opportunity launched me into another amazing one. Because when I went on the trip, I met 4 amazing girls that told me that they would be applying or rushing a fraternity called Alpha Phi Omega in the spring, and that I should totally do it with them, because you know, that's how girls talk. And so of course I rushed this fraternity that I knew nothing about, but I got in. And through 98 interviews that I had to conduct with the 98 active members of my fraternity, I discovered another study abroad program called Creating Sustainable Change. And it's probably not going to surprise you at this point that I applied to this program without knowing anything about it, but I got accepted anyway. And 7 months later, I find myself once again sitting next to strangers on a plane. But this time, I'm traveling halfway across the world to take marketing classes in Switzerland and conduct research in Africa. During my time in Ethiopia, I lived with priests. Catholic priests, and I conducted research about gender inequality among youth in sports. But mostly I hung out with and pretended to teach kids who realistically knew their times tables better than I did. And there are so many things that I could say about my travels and these situations of confusion and rejection that have put me in a place of having no idea what my next steps would be. But let me use one word: flowing. Because I'm not done traveling the world. I'm not done experiencing new places. I'm not done enjoying my college experience. And most importantly, I'm not done experiencing challenges. Most people think of go with the flow, and they equate it to this ideology of free-spiritedness and not having a care in the world about where life takes you. But go with the flow is all about a sense of purpose and direction, even when you're not exactly sure what direction that is. Go with the flow is about finding something that piques your interests and following the path through both good and bad times. But most importantly, stepping off the path and picking up a new one when you recognize that the journey is no longer serving you. Life doesn't stop for anyone, and because of this, we all need to go with the flow. And through all of my hardships and rejections, I realized that when life has tried to knock me down or gotten too challenging, I've kept flowing. And I've witnessed that ability to flow launch me into some of the richest opportunities of my young life thus far. And I think back to when my dad kicked me out, and I think of that brokenness and how lost I felt in that moment. And I think of feeling something similar when I lost my church community and everything that I called home. And I mourned, but when I got that email to go to the Dominican Republic, I didn't know how I was going to go or with what money, but that whisper came back into my head and it told me to continue on. Fast forward to now, I'm a rising senior about to graduate from Virginia Tech. My dad and I are in the process of healing our relationship. I traveled to over 9 countries all over the world and lived in Africa for a month. And sometimes I wake up and I think, who knew that this whirlwind of life would lead me to where I am right now? I sure didn't. And if you remember nothing else from this talk, remember this. When life changes course, we usually have no idea that it's going to do this. And we want to lay down and take a breather and sometimes give up. But life does not give us the opportunity to do that always. And when the plan changes, you need to change with it, because you have the ability to create some of the most amazing experiences out of your hardest tribulations. Thank you.